The Drum Candy podcast is brought to you by Drum Factory Direct.
Welcome into episode 13 of the Drum Candy podcast. This is your host, Mike Dawson, coming to you from Drum Factory Direct in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This week, I'm sitting down with the young veteran, Justin Faulkner, who has been playing with the legendary Branford Marsalis Quartet for the past 12 years. If you know anything about the Branford Marsalis Quartet, the drum seat is a hot seat, previously occupied by Jeff Tain Watts, and then Lewis Nash and Tony Williams has played with Branford over the years. Justin is carrying the torch of all these modern jazz greats and beyond. He's an incredibly thoughtful and deep philosophical person, so we go right into the deep end right away, and of course we bring it back to some gear talk. If you're not familiar with Justin's work, go to justinfaulknermusic.com. Check out the discography. He's got Branford Marsalis Quartet, he's got Holly Cole, he's got Dave Kokoski, he's got Corey Riker, he's got Kurt Rosenwinkel New Quartet, he's got Jacky Terrasson. It's pretty impressive. He's a very humble, very gracious young man, and yeah, so I actually met him when he was in 8th grade, so this is the first time that we sat down to talk since then. Pretty fun. So let's check it out. Here is Justin Faulkner. Well, Justin, thank you for joining the show. I wanted to first start with asking about getting back into playing live. You just did a few hits in Europe, right, with Branford's Quartet.
Yeah.
How did that feel after, what, a year and a half break?
It was pretty intense because, our last show was 2 days before lockdown. Mm-hmm. Literally, we got back on U.S. soil from Canada, and we all, we have a group text, so everybody sending each other yeah, man, that last show was great. We played in Toronto at Kerner Hall, and, saw a bunch of old friends, and it was great. So we're texting each other, yeah, man, we can't wait to go to Belgium. I think that was the next thing, and we were supposed to leave maybe a week after we arrived home. So we get home and it's oh no, that's canceled. No, actually the rest of this tour is going to be canceled. Oh no, the year is canceled. And so we did one small thing during the pandemic. We some of us did the music for the Ma Rainey's Black Bottom film that came out on Netflix somewhere in the middle of the pandemic. So coming back after all of that inactivity, and it's like the same 6 cats traveling the world together for 12 years straight. Mm-hmm. So for all of us, it's when we saw each other, it was wait, you exist. Oh my gosh. Unfortunately, some of us saw each other, in between that time. Some people, once everybody was vaccinated, people started going to each other's homes when they were in town or whatever, because everybody lives all over the U.S. Mm-hmm. So that first show, where was it? We played in Tbilisi, Georgia. That was a surreal moment, and the night before we saw Antonio Sanchez's band play. So, we got to hang with them, have dinner, because we, none of us had seen each other. So, yeah, man, it was kind of crazy. For me to hit a drum and people reacting, it was a foreign thing,
right?
So, but yeah, man, people have been digging, the perspective that the band is coming from. They've been digging how we interpret the songs, and I think Branford has a really cool way of meeting the audience halfway. So we play a bunch of really wild stuff, but then on the flip side we play 30s tunes as well, so the audience really received as well. And there was a point where Branford said hello everybody to the audience, and they just clapped for 5 minutes just straight, because everybody was so I don't think they believed that they were sitting in an audience watching a concert. So it was pretty fantastic, man. I know that was a really long way to answer that. Sorry.
Did it feel like you guys just picked up where you left off, if a new band? How did it feel?
So, okay, so our band is a band of, I wouldn't say perfectionists. I would say they're very high achievers. Like there's a standard of playing that all of them believe in, and over time they've instilled that in me because I met them when I was 17. So, there's a standard that we all understand that we're trying to get to. Like Dizzy Gillespie told, I think it was maybe either Terence Blanchard or, I think it was Terence Blanchard. He told him after, they did like this, it was him, Woody Shaw, Freddie Hubbard, and Terence. And Dizzy played, and so Terence looks at him, he's like, man, Diz, how did you get to that? And he was like, man, look, dude, there's another level that I'm trying to get to in general. And with Branford and the guys, that's how we think. It's like, even though we play some of the same songs every night, we're trying to get into what we call the lost vibe, which is truly trying to get lost. Because, Ornette Coleman said that he believes that, a lost musician, or really like, there's a level of innocence of behind not knowing what you're doing or being lost. And for them, for years, they used to try to like force themselves to get lost so that they can find like how to get back to the thing. That doesn't work in all music, of course, because you'll get fired if you miss the click on certain gigs. But for us, a large part of it is like open interpretation, improvised music. So, truth be told, man, how can I put it? Like, it didn't feel like a new band because we all know each other really well. Like, really well, to the point where, Eric Rivas, our bass player, like, I'm an extra limb on his body. Like, I know when and where, how, why. And then when he comes through with some new stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We'll add that to the dictionary. Like, it's, so, but I mean, I think we all understood that there was a new calling, like there was a new season of what we do, and it was and that it's important for us to really double down on the beliefs, convictions, and truths of the music that we all share. Because as we see more of our older musicians are unfortunately leaving us or retiring from playing and such, I don't think anyone needs to be a caricature, but I do believe we need to. I do believe that we need to uphold a certain standard and also be able to play the truth of what the music was, so that we can truly educate our young musicians and also the audience as to what this music is today.
So, man, we're going to dive deep here. So, the paradox, losing yourself, but you have to prepare at such a high level as far as knowing the music, knowing your instrument, knowing each other. What is the practice process for you as the drummer to get to the point where you can let yourself get lost?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. That's a great question. Okay. Cool. All right. So since we're diving deep, I'm gonna take the plunge. So one of the things about my core belief behind playing music is that I, as a drummer, have to decrease myself as a musician has to increase, and the song reigns supreme over all of that. So there comes a point where, like, I don't believe I can play songs that I haven't internalized. So even if I'm sight reading, I mean, I don't want to say it like this, but I guess it's the only way. I've kind of developed an ability to understand the concept of a song pretty quickly, because I've been placed in a lot of subbing situations where I'm subbing for some of the baddest people on the on the scene. It's like, especially at a younger age. So I remember I used to play with the Mingus Big Band for like 4 or 5 years, but I was 15, 16 years old. So I get called for this gig, and I have Boris Kozlov, I have Sean Jones, Lou Soloff, Ryan Kaiser, like all of these cats around me, and I'm like, oh God, I'm in way over my head. Orrin Evans and Dave Kikowski playing piano is like, it's nuts, right? So through that process of, it's really like a repetition thing, like I would have to figure out how to make music out of these songs on the spot. So like that meant looking through a chart and seeing, okay, where is the rise, what is the arc of this song? And sometimes we'd have 4 or 5 pagers. So I'm like, oh God, okay, cool. Yeah, we're gonna play Children's Hour of Dream. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So then I take out this, these 12 sheets, and I'm like, oh, okay, oh. Climax here, boom. And then even, I'll turn around and I'll ask cats about it. Like, hey, yo, so since we didn't rehearse, where's the pinnacle of the tune? And they're like, yeah, man, it's bar 79. Cool, great, no problem. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, let me create levels so that when we get to the apex of the song, we've developed something from the beginning till now, or from the beginning till then. So it's like, I may, let's say I'm playing a snare drum roll on this particular piece of music. I'll play this, this closed roll, or maybe it's an open roll, maybe it's like a hybrid of some sort. And certain areas, I may open the roll up a little bit more to give contrast, to give color contrast, to give distinction of us playing in a new section. Like, I'll figure out things that I can do to help develop the song along. So with Branford's band, it's interesting because everybody thinks that way. Everybody. I mean, it's like, Eric Rivas for years was like, my musical architectural guru. Like, he would say, hey, what do we need to do to get here on this song? So knowing the song so well, it's like, okay, well, we understand what the structure is and we understand what the goal is here. Everything else is open season. You do as you wish and hope for the best in a lot of cases. Like, as long as you don't sacrifice what the song needs, because we don't, like, I think a lot of musicians that I've encountered are like, oh man, if you play jazz, man, it's just like, it's open. I'm like, well, yeah, but no. Like, because there are some bands who write songs, like legitimate, like, songs. There are sections and there is a point to the tune. Some people's music is designed for you to, go wherever it goes, and that's all right with the band leader. But with Branford and a lot of the guys, they write what I consider complete thoughts. So, to be honest with you, man, the only way to practice for that is to just do it with people who do it well. And I tell a lot of my musician friends that are younger than me, and I'm like, look, find the best musicians in the city, and if they have a jam session, please go play, and you will suck at it for a while, and you will thank me later. Because it's like, you have to get in over your head so that you can understand where the level is, and then when you go and play with other people, you are developing them as well. It's kind of like getting a video game and starting on hard. Or legendary if you were a Halo player at any point. It's like starting there. If you play multiplayer with anybody after that, you're a genius. Like you're one of the best players they've ever encountered, because you are playing where glitches happen in the game, and you may lose you may you may end up losing a weapon or something because the map gets messed up, but who knows? But the reality is this: you've prepared for all of the possible things that can happen, and if not, even you getting surprised, you're somewhat prepared for that. You know what I mean? And so within the band, it's like when we're playing, all kinds of stuff happens. I'll look at our pianist Joey, and it's like he's playing a fifth chorus. I'm like, oh God, I don't have steam for this. Or better yet, I thought we've built it to a place where like the send-off is now ready, when in fact he's like, no, there's more. And I'm like, okay, so cool. So what can I do to set up this next section since we have this unplanned chorus happening? Or since I thought I did everything I could to get us to that next section, so it's a different thing every night. And I'm always wondering, behind like the lost vibe, behind, trying to develop levels to the songs, my thing is always, what does this song need from me right now? And how can I get out of the way of the song so that music can happen? Because if I don't, then, well, I'll make it about me and it'll be a drum solo all night.
Right. How much of this is verbal versus nonverbal? Like, do you ever talk about it, or is it just experiential?
In the beginning, we talked about it a lot, because growing up playing gospel music, growing up playing R&B, like, I understood the concept of, like creating levels, especially like in pop music, because the stuff that we hear on the radio, especially like within the pop rock category, like from back in like 90s, 2000s stuff, even now, of course, country music as well, and some Americana folk stuff, drummers would just slightly change the hi-hat pattern and it would elevate the entire second verse, right? So they always used to talk to me about this, and then when they first had this conversation with me, they all gave me like maybe like 100 gigabytes of music collectively when I first joined, and they were like, so here is your library to figure life out. I'm like, cool.
What was in that? What were the hot spots?
Man, Albert Ayler's Spiritual Unity, Keith Jarrett's European Quartet, the album Belonging, let's see, Ahmad Jamal Trio, which actually changed my life, because I wasn't super familiar with Vernel Fournier, besides Poinciana, because everybody knows that, but Vernel actually became like a huge inspiration for a large portion of how I felt the beat. And then they would pinpoint specific drummers, like Paul Motion, for example. I mean, his understanding of development, and also his understanding of his role in every band that I've ever heard him play in. It's kind of remarkable, especially on that, there's the record, I Have a Room Above Her, with Joe Lovano and Bill Frisell. Man, there's this one tune called Osmosis 3. Literally, he just plays like this open, broken ride cymbal pattern and like slight comping on the snare drum, and Bill and Joe Lovano are building around this, but he values his part and his role so much that he found almost like a zen-like state playing that. And for me, that's the kind of understanding and spirit I want to bring to the music when you hire me, or when I'm asked to collaborate. And I think those guys exposing me to those records early on opened up that door for me to now be able to contribute to like our collective vernacular that we've developed over the years, with them, with Tane and Lewis Nash and Tony Williams. Like, those are the drummers that preceded me in Branford's situation, kind of including Winton's quintet, because that was kind of the birth of all of this. Being able to add something to that vocabulary over time, it's kind of surreal in a sense, because but it's a continuation, like that vocabulary that they've established, it still lives within who we are as the Branford Marsalis Quartet. It's like, I would be insane to not say that Jeff Tane Watts was a huge inspiration in many ways, so and Tane is also, I mean, one of the greats when it comes to development. It's like, if you listen to any of like especially the album Eternal, it's mastery. It's like I tell drummers all the time, like, I don't normally recommend modern drummers to listen to, but there are some of them, like, you know, Tane, Blade, that embody so much of the history, and because I don't like saying the past, because it tends to add to the argument of people that are saying that jazz needs to evolve and such. I mean, jazz is going to evolve with or without us. It's just the way it works, you know. But Tane and Blade and, you know, Kenny Washington and a lot of musicians that approach the drums from a foundational place of yesterday, it drastically affects the way that we hear and choose to interpret the music. And for those guys to be alive, I mean, Terry Lynn Carrington and Cindy Blackman, like, for all of those people to be alive and interpreting simultaneously while we're also figuring this stuff out, it's the bomb. It's like, you know, like those people are kind of like the cheat codes in a sense. Like, you know, like Ralph Peterson as well. It's like, it's okay, cool. There's Blakey, but also, like, since you may not understand that, because that is, like, you know, like the highest level, start with people who have been influenced and actually spent time with these people. So, you know, you go check out some Ralph Peterson stuff and it's like, oh, okay, that's an interesting way of approaching Blakey's shuffle, or, you know, Blakey's ability to set up a band and basically make it seem like every song was written by him. You know, it's like these people exist. So they've definitely helped in that process of me figuring out the vocabulary that I'm going to contribute to the band for those, you know, moments of chaos or controlled chaos, if you will. And some of it is talked about. Like, you know, I mean, we hang all the time, you know, when we're in airport lounges, like, we'll say, hey, man, you know, I didn't really dig this. Let's try this. You know, but
that's cool. Yeah.
I mean, we're no one in the band is really insecure. Like, we're all just kind of like, yeah, that sucked. We're not doing that anymore. You know, it's a very matter of fact, you know, to, like, listen to the message, forget the messenger, and also forget the method. Like, let's make sure that these songs reign supreme, you know.
Is there ever a moment on stage when you catch yourself, like, doing a Taneism or something, and you have to be like, step away from that, or do you embrace it?
I think I've gotten to a point now where my influences are blended so much, because I have to be honest, I've never been a fan of licks. I don't have them knowingly, at least. Like, I don't attempt to play, like, any licks. Like, even if there's an idea that someone may hear me play multiple times in different settings, I mean, I think we all use the word "the" when we talk, you know. So I consider what's coming out more of a vocabulary and more of a I mean, yeah, I don't really have those in my vocabulary knowingly. It may come out because I'm influenced by the people, but nah. If there's any time where I'm kind of like refocusing or pushing myself away from something, it's if I play something preconceived. So meaning, like, you know, if I'm playing behind Branford or anybody in the band for that matter, if you are not 100% engaged, you've missed it. There is no autopilot, because they will always zig when you should have zagged. You know, like, that's the way that band works, because all of them are incredible in the moment improvisers. Like, there is nothing that we did last night that's gonna come out unless we quoted a song and we thought it was cool. Like, you know, like we quote Machine Gun on one of Eric's songs, and so I happen to just like the drum groove, bang 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 bang. I mean, it's pretty fantastic, right? So the whole band knows it. So somehow, some way, like, I'll displace it and put it somewhere, and then they'll requote, like, you know, the bass line or the guitar line, you know, 10 measures later, in a place where they actually hear it in the moment, rather than trying to chase me with what I've just played. And then sometimes we meet each other in that same place, right? So yeah, I just try to stay away from developing a lick. I would much rather embody the sound of a person and allow that to kind of guide me on my way, the same way that great philosophers have given us, ways to compute thought and compute emotions and, navigate aspects of our lives. Like, I like to look at albums as that, it's like the John Coltrane Quartet live at the Vanguard. It has given me an understanding of how to approach playing at a high intensity the whole time. Art Blakey's Buhana's Delight, the song Contemplation, has taught me how to have intensity in a ballad without playing loud or being demonstrative. Like, that was the first time I had ever heard a drummer feather Four on the Floor in a ballad while everybody else was playing too. It was deep because it was like, oh snap, this gives this a forward motion that's really different than what I've ever heard. So yeah, they're like books to me, rather than, like, I quote books every now and then, but yeah, I don't make them like cliche things. You know what I mean? Because people know when it's genuine and when you're just trying to prove something,
Yeah. Do you have like a daily or a pre-show kind of routine to get yourself focused for this high demand, Absolutely. Mental intensity performing?
Yeah, I do now. Before it was just to hang with the band. Like, I mean, it's really funny, man. Like, I wish that like, because I remember growing up reading Modern Drummer, and like, you'd like see Weckel's routine, or like you'd see, Vinny Colaiuta's routine. Or I actually saw Vinny Colaiuta's routine once, and it was pretty. It was just wild that I was watching Vinny do anything at that point. But yeah. So I have a trainer that is guiding me on my fitness and health journey. So he's kind of designed some basic things for me. Like, I have a protein shake that I take every day that has the right herbs, and it gives me all of the amount of green leafy vegetables that I need in my diet, and I think that helps to kind of jumpstart my day in general. I'm a huge fan of ginkgo biloba. Like, I take ginkgo every other day. I also, like, while I'm on the road, I do a mini workout in the room before the show, before I get dressed. And that's really with just a resistance band and a PVC pipe. It's just like doing some pulls, just getting the muscles engaged, so that, like, in the words of my trainer, I'm able to explode when I walk on the stage. He's a very animated person, so he's like, man, I need the guns and the I'm like, cool, bro, thank you, I appreciate it, But when we're backstage, I started bringing my pad. I didn't in the past. Well, I did it on and off for a long time, but there's something kind of zen about going through, like, the list of the PAS 40 rudiments. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's a form of meditation for me. Especially when you get to like the diddle rudiments and the drag rudiments, like towards the end. Like, there's something really interesting about sitting there and just ripping out triple rhythm cues before the show. Like, I know that my hands are gonna work, because first of all, that's not an easy rudiment to play clean. And then also too, like, there's some Buddy Rich snare drum or Buddy Rich-esque solos that I've always loved playing, because I mean, I've been studying Buddy Rich as like a hobby since I was 10. Like, I'm one of the biggest Buddy Rich fans ever. Also Rufus Speedy Jones, and so when I'm sitting there, I just get my hands warmed up. We'll probably snack on something. I also, depending on when I've taken my protein shake, if I've taken my protein shake in the morning, I'll actually eat 2 bananas right before the show.
Okay.
Just to make sure that no cramping happens, because like there are some times when I try to do death-defying tricks, also known as like playing more notes on the bass drum than one probably should with the calf muscles that I have, but if that's what I hear, that's what I'm gonna play. So yeah, man. And then also too, I will I'll have the 2 bananas. I'll sometimes also take some potassium tablets as well, because the worst thing in the world is like, you've played the whole show well, you get to the last tune, and oftentimes the last tune is where there's a drum solo, and as soon as I try to go for something, it's like, okay, I might have to stand up and play because I'm in pain. So I'm making sure that I constantly drink a ton of water, because it helps. And sometimes we'll just be listening in the back to tunes, like we were on for years we were on this spinners kick. So we'd listen to Could It Be I'm Falling in Love every day before the show, or there's a rapper named Smino who we were all checking out at the time. So like Eric Reeves would play Smino, or whatever tunes we're checking out. Sometimes it's like some old stuff. Branford is hipping us to like some history that he may have just found out, like Train playing in some of those R&B dance bands, and Bird playing in some of the dance bands. Like Branford finds the recordings and he's like, yo, check this out. Or a drummer that most people believe is like a modern drummer from like 60s, 70s, them playing with like a jug band in New Orleans. It's just stuff like that that he finds, or that any of us find. Sometimes we're having political conversations, sometimes we're talking about clothes, or it all depends. But basically there's no real like pre-show thing besides warming up and hydrating and making sure the body is in the best shape possible.
What gear do you travel with?
So I now travel with my cymbals and sometimes the snare drum. Depends on what's happening. I just got this new Craviotto Reserve Bird's Eye Maple snare drum, and it's insanity. I mean, everything that I want is in that drum. And I was talking to Dave Victor about it, because I'm like, man, I have a lot of great stuff from y'all, but I don't have just a simple 5.5 by 14 maple snare drum. I'm like, and it's kind of sacrilegious. It's just like I think I need to add that to the lexicon, and so they made that for me. I received that around Christmas time, actually. So that comes with me from time to time. I always have a pair of Hardimans with me, just because it's a nice stick, and also I have the Ted ACATS persimmon classical sticks that Vic Firth makes. I always have those because I play etudes every day in my practice regimen, and I like using those more so than the Hardimans for that. Let me see, what else do I bring? I'm a clothes horse, so I bring a lot of stuff. It's like, and it's all in like neutral colors, just because packing for the road for me, like, we wear suits every night. So, and basically I wear a suit every day. It's like some variation of it. Like, it may be more casual. It may be like, I have suits that are made out of sweatpant material. Like, that's my thing. So, that does go under gear, because without my armor, if you would, I don't know, it wouldn't. I mean, and I still rock t-shirts and jeans and stuff, but I probably have on a blazer. It's just my thing. So, I also, for years, man, I traveled with moon gels. I just, now, man, I'm trying to do my best to tune the drums well and not need those. But on certain stages, especially when the stage is more live than the house is, I mean, I will tape my drums up almost completely so that the guys on stage can feel what I'm playing and so that the sound doesn't swim on stage. And our sound engineer Robbie Hunter, he's a beast. Like he's also a drummer. He used to play in the rock band Raven. Okay. And you know, he and I, we sit down and like the first thing we do when I walk in, because we don't sound check. So like I walk in and he's tuning the drums and getting the rest of the stuff set up. I'm like, so Robbie, what do we need on the drums tonight? And I hit it and he's like, yeah, let's tune in mid so I can add this and this. I'm like, cool, great. And so we have this thing that we call Towley. I know it's a South Park reference, but so basically it's a big bath towel that we roll and tape in 3 places, and then I tape it on the side of the bass drum rim, so okay. like right above my beater. So I'll either do it above or to the side, and that's what I use to muffle. And we have like 4 of those, because sometimes, you know, depending on the space, I may need to muffle it a little bit more or a little bit less. We have multiple sizes, and it's just something that he kind of developed over time for me. Because I tried using felt strips and all this other stuff. I want the least amount of moving parts possible. You know, it's like we already have roughly 16 bags between the 6 of us when we're traveling. I don't think I need to bring like another gear bag with like all of my paraphernalia just so that I can try stuff. You know, sometimes I travel with a big fat snare drum head, just because, especially when we were doing like the Kurt Elling Branford stuff, you know, detuning my snare drum with no time was a lot. And we had more stuff to set up. Some of the travel was really crazy, so I'm like, you know something?
Yep.
Go. Great, wonderful. Life is good, you know, and also it's consistent enough too. So like, in a lot of the other bands that I play in, I'll bring it just to, you know, give me options.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times even with Branford's band, I'm searching, but my kid is already big enough with Branford's band. You know, I'm using like a main snare, a secondary snare, 1 rack, 2 floors, about 4 or 5 cymbals, and cowbell, a block, and a splash as well, because we play trad stuff. It's like, I got enough gear, you know. Let's just deal with the parameters that we have here. But with other people, you know, like when I play with Dafra Yusuf, I have 3 snare drums, because a lot of the tunes have like similar tempos, so to give color changes and differentiate between certain aspects of the songs, you know, I have like a really, you know, high-pitched popcorn-ish snare, like a 13 or even sometimes a 12, then, you know, 14 by 5.5, then like a 14 by like 7 or 8, you know. So it all depends on who I'm playing with and what I need.
How do you tune that Craviotto snare? I find that high but dense, for lack of a better term, jazz snare drum sound hard to achieve. Like it chokes out.
I'm gonna be honest, man. I basically start all of my snare drums at A right under middle C.
Okay.
440. Like that's a starting point, and it's funny. I spent a year and a half touring. We did a double bill tour with Terence Blanchard's band, and it was really cool. Me and Kendrick Scott became really close as a result of that. He was playing drums with Terence at the time, and that was like his starting point for all of his snare drums. It was like, hey, you know, I start this at A and I see where it takes me. And he used to, you know, carry like a pitch pipe. He was like very meticulous, and his drums always sound great. So I started saying, okay, well, maybe A works, you know, and I'll start there. I'll see, with my drum specifically, when I first got it, I mean, I still have like the factory Craviotto Remo head that they use, and it's great. I started at A, and then I'll just see how the room sounds more than anything, you know, because A tends to work in most rooms for me. But, you know, depends on who I'm playing with. Like sometimes, like a couple nights ago, I played with this vocalist, and the bass player's tone was punchy, but also like not massive. So therefore, like I don't know why, but I'm able to hear like, okay, these are the frequencies in the spectrum of sound on stage. These are the frequencies that we need to address or fill so that it sounds like a full band. So for me, I tuned my snare a little bit higher that evening, and my snare and my bass drum was a little bit higher as well, and it worked. It's an experiment for me oftentimes, but I don't really do anything special to the drum. If the drum is great, and specifically with the solid shell drums that Craviotto has, and the smaller or more shallow dimensions of the snare drum, those tend to crank really well and pretty easily for me. With my deeper drums, I try not to go that high, especially the ones that I have wood hoops on, because for me it doesn't have the same effect. So I'll start with A, and that's probably the highest I'll go with, like, my 14 by 7 or my 15 by 12, which I have as well. So.
What about the toms and bass drum? Is there a starting point?
So I used to tune to the notes of the bass. So it would be like, what is that? E D? No, wait, is that E D A G? Yeah, EGAD. Yeah, not E D A G. Yeah. So like I would tune. That was when I was using a bunch of toms. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you, man. Like, I don't really have a methodology behind it. I know people that tune in fourths and fifths, and it's great. And sometimes that happens, but really, I tune based on the room, because me and the sound engineer, especially with Branford, our goal is to have the best drum sound for that room. Because, at one point I had the opportunity to travel with my own personal kit, because Tane did for years, and Branford was like, yeah, man, get your kit together, and we'll get it, and we'll ship it to New York, and you'll have it, get the company that you're with to ship one kit to New York, and you'll have your stuff at the crib or whatever. And for me, I was kind of like, oh, okay, great, I can't wait, this is wonderful, I get to play my drums every night. And then our bassist Eric Reeves was just like, no, you don't. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, man, I'm like, in my mind then, I'm like, man, I'm an adult. Like, you can't talk to me. I was a smooth 17 still in high school. Right. So he's like, no, you have to learn to play any drum that comes your way. He was like, you have to learn to make music, and like make music well on, on trash can tops if need be. And I'm at a point now where it's just like, yeah, I can. It's like I'm not ever intimidated by a kit. It's like, okay, I see what we have. Great, let's make the best of this. So that means either changing the heads or taping or whatever. So with my toms, it depends on what company of drums I'm using that day, because unfortunately Craviotto isn't widely available across the world. You'd be surprised where it is available though, because I played in the Czech Republic and in Brno and another city I forget, and both of those cities had cats with Craviotto kits. I was dumbfounded, and it was just like, but I had but a major U.S. city, it was interesting. I think that will change now with the new Diamond kit though. But excuse me. So yeah, man, it depends on the kit. Like with Yamaha toms, like I tune a certain way. With Canopus drums, I tune a certain way. With any of the backline stuff that we get, because some cities don't even, you'd be surprised how many cities don't have Maple Custom Absolutes anymore, so with the Craviottos, I tend to look for what is the best note I can get out of each drum. It's like, if this drum sounds great slightly above the A that I'm tuning my snare drum, so be it. I would much rather like the purity of the drum, especially since that level of craftsmanship is going into making that solid shell work of art in many ways. It's like, yeah, let's just honor what it does rather than trying to force it into my box, which is, this big in comparison to the tuning range of the drum, which may be, incredibly wide or very specific. I'm about getting the job done in the most efficient way possible while honoring the integrity of what's around me and my surroundings,
This is probably a hard question to answer. What is your all-time favorite recorded drum sound? Or I'll give you 3 or 4.
Okay. Let's see. Tony's drums on Four and More. Jazz or in general?
Start there and then go take it elsewhere.
Cool. So Tony's drums on Four and More. Vernel Fournier's drums on Live at the Spotlight. Let me see. Roy Haynes' bass drum actually on Live at St. Nick's Pub. I think that was like one of the first, or no, not St. Nick's Pub, but St. Nick's. I think that was like one of the first records he did with Charlie Parker.
Wow, I don't know that one.
It's nasty, and because the snare drum sounds incredible too. The kit sounds fine, but some of it is slightly inaudible. But the bass drum, it was a beast. Sonny Payne's drums on Wives and Lovers with Frank Sinatra and the Bootsie Band. Paul Motion's drums on the first Keith Jarrett trio record. What is it, like Life Between the Signs? I think it's Between the Exit Signs. I think it's called something like that. His drums sound incredible. Like, it's just, the toms are pure. The cymbals sound great. The snare drum is just, it's like the sweet spot of tuning for me. Elvin's drums on everything. Baby Dodd's drums on Talking and Drum Solos. For that to be recorded from so long ago, the tom sounds were so clear and so pure. The snare drum sound was, it was honest. You could hear the guts on the bottom of the snare, but it sounded like a, old school militaristic snare drum, and it was beautiful. Otherwise, in other situations, Porcaro's drums on Gaucho, Bernard Purdie's drums on Babylon Sister, Gad's drums on Asia. I forget who played drums on Love and Happiness with Al Green. The drum sound on Footsteps in the Dark with the Isley Brothers. Thomas Hake's drums on everything, like on all of Meshuggah stuff. I'm the fan. It's really just, it's really smart and really well done.
You're all over the place.
Oh, dude, I'm just, it's everywhere. Like, Brian Blade's drums with Trixie Whitley and Daniel Lanois, like that stuff. The Black Dub stuff. Dang it, what is the gentleman's name? Oh man, he's not gonna be happy with me. He's his drummer. He really great, like studio legendary cat, and I just found out like who he was. I had been hearing him for years, but there's a great singer-songwriter that's like a sister to me, named Kate Shutt, and this drummer, he just played his face off on the album. Every single thing that could possibly be done, and then everything that none of us would ever think to play, he did it. And you could just tell that he is a seasoned veteran in the studio. Like, he cared so much about the tunes. He used cymbals that I would have never considered, but now I can't play the songs without them.
Interesting.
Like that's the, wow, I can't believe I can't remember his name.
What's the record called?
Bright Nowhere.
By what's the artist again?
Kate Shutt. I can send you the spelling and such as well.
Yep.
But I mean, yeah, it's an incredible record. Let me see, man. I love the way Carlos Vega's drums sound. On some of that Dave Grusin stuff. Harvey Mason's drums on the album Heartfelt. His snare drum sound is impeccable. Omar Hakim, woo, sweet Jesus, yeah. Omar Hakim on, what's the name of that record? It's a Weather Report record with him and Victor Bailey. The song Plaza Real is on it.
Okay.
Drum sounds for days. Just like high pitched 8-inch toms, but like with enough reverb on it. I mean, it's hooked up. Bootsy Collins drums on Stretching Out. Because he plays drums drums and bass on the record. His drums on Flashlight, he's playing drums on that too, with George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic.
I didn't know that was Bootsy.
Yeah, man. So I mean, I spent a lot of time with Bootsy. Well, not a lot, but a nice amount of time with Bootsy, talking to him, and we did his last record too. So it's like I asked him, I was like, yeah, man. So I heard you play drums. He's like, yeah, man. And I mean, he's so modest and humble. It's insane. Like, I'm like, man, do you know that you may be the funkiest person to ever live?
Yeah, right.
And you're just like so kind and gentle and humble. Like, it's incredible. So, yeah, Bootsy's drum sound is just functional. Like, he chooses to do what he does, and it's like, oh yeah, this song needs this. Like, his song Stretching Out was actually based on Fela Kuti's stuff. Like, he was hanging out in Nigeria apparently, and he heard Tony Allen playing some stuff, and he was hanging out in a nightclub with the band, and he was like, oh yeah, I need this. And he said that the record is actually based on what he could remember from being there, and so yeah, man, like, I mean, like, drum sounds for me, I would much rather have like an embodiment of a million of them and like truly have them a part of me. Like, Calvin Rogers drums on anything that he plays, because he's very specific about, tom tuning, snare drum tuning. Marvin McQuitty as well on specifically this Marette Brown Clark album. I think it's called One God Live, I believe. I could be wrong, but I mean, he was using the K Session Series cymbals, that 21-inch ride with the massive bell. Like, that's an iconic gospel ride cymbal sound. And the gospel live records that I've played on, I used it. Like, it was like, okay, I can't do this without this, and that exists for me in a lot of ways. Like, I did this album with Kurt Rosenwinkel in 2012. There was a song that was like Asia-ish, but also like Gaucho-ish and whatnot. Man, Deadened Toms was a no-brainer. Like, the song wouldn't be the song without deep dead snare drum. I had like a 26-inch bass drum with a fiber skin head on it, and like, like I had an 18-inch GMS floor tom. Like, because it was necessary, And the thing about it is, like, once you embody these drum sounds in these records, you can't unhear that stuff. So like, if I'm placed in those situations, I'm like, Dr. Gad, I'm sorry, I have to do this. Like, it's just, you will understand when you hear it, and I think that there will be like a moment of symmetry where we'll both look at each other and say, yeah, it had to happen. It had to happen. It's just what it is, So,
what was your first snare drum?
Okay. So I had 3 that would be considered firsts. Okay. One of them was like this kid. It was like Rock the World, drum, and it was just like a kid snare drum that was connected to the bass drum. 4 actually. I had a Fisher Price like drum that was considered to be like an old school field drum.
Okay,
But
I think I had that too.
yeah, like the blue drum with like the yellow rim and the red sticks connected to it. Yeah,
Plastic
that.
head.
So exactly. Yep. So that was like number one, right? Then I got it was like a chrome, actually pretty big, like a chrome 14x6. Cause I still have it, like chrome 14x6. That was a CP percussion, cosmic or CP drums, like cosmic percussion, and that actually still sounds pretty fantastic. Like I just put some, like I put a Emperor X on it, and some what is the name of the snares? I forget. I put some of the Vic First snares on it just to kind of see what was happening. It's fine. Sounds great. And then one of my favorites was the hammered nickel Tama snare drums that they came out with, or hammered something. I forget what metal it actually is, but when that came out, I was obsessed with piccolo snares because I had just watched Omar Hakim's instructional video with Victor Bailey and Michael Bearden.
Love those two videos.
Man, it was just, goodness gracious, man. And so, like, he had that piccolo to the side. I'm like, oh, yeah, we're doing this. Like, it's like, Mom and Dad, I need a piccolo. So they got me, like, 12 by, I don't even know what that dimension would be, like 3 or 4, something like that. And I still have it. It's the bomb. Sounds great.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, I only have one last question. What's on the horizon for the rest of 2021 for you?
Man, so my family and I, we own and operate a music festival, which is also it's a music nonprofit in general. And what we do is, we collect instruments for kids, and also we raise money to basically give young people the opportunity, and really the public, the opportunities that I had coming up. I grew up in Philly, and oddly enough, no one knows this, but like, you knew me when I was a kid, which is hilarious. Yep. Like, on so many levels. Like, when you told me about that, I said, holy crap. You were the first person that told me to change ride symbols to differentiate sections. That is the bomb. So thank you for that, man.
The only piece of advice I had for you. Otherwise, it was just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Dude, listen, man. You don't understand, man. It changed everything. Look, it got me here. Shoot. But so, I was going to the Kimmel Center quite a bit at that time, and they had a really great education program. They still do, but it's different now. There was a director named Mark Johnson, a great, like, really incredible multi-instrumentalist, and one of the best educators I've ever encountered. And Mark, and also the team of Mervyn Mikta, Tom Warner, and Lily Schwartz, and Velma Simmons, and Carol Frazier. I remember those people because they made the unthinkable possible for us. It's like, I got a chance to meet everyone. When I say everybody, I mean everybody. So Wynton Marsalis, Ornette Coleman, Brian Blade Fellowship Band. Danilo Perez was artist in residence, so he would come to our jazz band rehearsals at the Kimmel Center and give us and do master classes with us. Through that, we met James Moody. We met, a lot of the local legends from Philly: Bootsie Barnes, Sam Reed, Peter Nero when he was still the head of the Philly Pops. I mean, we met everybody through this program. But the craziest thing is, as a result of this, quick story, I'm at Berkeley at this point of the story, and I'm hanging out in a coffee shop. I'm a coffee nerd, so that's a thing. But we're hanging out in this coffee shop called Pavement in Boston, and I saw Danilo Perez walk in, and he hadn't seen me for I guess 6 years, 5 years, something like that. So I see him, and I'm like, oh man, he's standing with John Patitucci and all of these other people. I'm going over here to say, hey, he doesn't remember me, but I'm going to try. I'm like, Mr. Perez, how you doing? I just want to introduce myself. You used to do master classes at the Kimmel Center, and I was the drummer in that band. He said, Little Justin? I'm like, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, yes, we did it. And so, he introduced me to John Patitucci that day. And then, I had known Brian Blade because every time he came to town, I went to go check it out. And so, man, I would see them then on the road because, I'm playing with Branford. So, like, a lot of the festivals were all headlining together. So, one year we did a double bill with Wayne Shorter. And, like, to have Danilo, John Patitucci, and Brian Blade walk off stage and say, hey, Wayne, this guy is going to be one of the ones. I'm like, had it not been for my upbringing and being around this caliber of musicianship. I mean, I met Terry Lynn Carrington when I was 16, and she helped me get a scholarship to school. It's like she told me the process and, got me into the 5-week program. Also, Kate Shutt, the singer-songwriter I spoke about, her and Terry Lynn were friends, and she introduced me to Terry Lynn because she was looking for young drummers. So it's like all of these connections happened as a result of one person in the chain looking out for me. One person in the circle looking out for me in my well-being. And so my mother, brother, and I, we wanted to start a network like this. And so with our festival, we've thus far had Branford's band, we've played it, Jacky Terrasson, Bootsy Collins did it the last year, Papo Vasquez from Philly. Then also we've had some Philly legends headline the festival as well. But we want an insanely high level of artistic history and artistic preservation to exist in Philadelphia again, and specifically exist in West Philadelphia as well. So I want young people to be exposed to this because I grew up in the same neighborhood that they're in. And, while my friends were at the Poconos for their senior trip, I was playing at New Morning in Paris. And to have that opportunity, it came from master classes. I met Branford at a master class, which is insane. It's like and so Rhoda Blount is another education guru that was the VP of Community Engagement and Education for the Mann Music Center. And they did this project about Francis Johnson, which was like, this incredible early wind instrument pioneer. And, Francis Johnson wrote a bunch of chamber music and like had a bunch of chamber stuff that has heavily influenced the way that we look at wind and brass instruments today. Specifically brass, actually, not wind. And so this gentleman named Rodney Marsalis was the curator of this project, who happens to also be Branford's cousin. And he brings Branford in. My high school jazz band plays, and he tells us how bad we sound. And then he tells everyone how to fix it, what records to check out. And he comes to me and he's like, yo, man, yeah, do that. Whatever you've been doing, don't stop. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm surprised. Okay, cool. And then 3 months later, I get a call. Nice. It's like, had I not met him in an education setting, I wouldn't know him. So I have to do everything in my power. We have to do everything in our power as a family to create those opportunities for young people again. Because, the Philadelphia School District has less music in all of the schools. I went to GAMP, which had, like a 7-person music staff. I don't think that's the case anymore, just due to budget cuts. And, it's just, they need it. It's like it gives them an alternative to doing whatever else they're doing, which, as we see the numbers rising, has not been that productive in the city. So it's like I would much rather be a part of the solution than to complain about the problem. And so with that, we're doing a fundraiser on hold 1 second. I will tell you. I believe it's August 27th. And so we're doing a fundraiser August 27th at CEC, which is the Community Education Center. I can send you the details on that. And it's going to be my band and my brother's band. My brother's Nazir Ebo, who's also a drummer, and he's insane. You know, I mean, I will never talk about what I do for a living unless people ask, but I will always brag on him because he's one of the most creative people I've ever met in my life. I mean, just, you know, he's ambitious. Like, he wants to play, you know, and for him to, you know, he writes music. He's hired some of the like nastiest musicians in the city, nasty in the good way for those who don't understand the lingo. And, you know, he's writing music and trying to incorporate, you know, some uncanny, off the beaten path artists, you know, to do the things that they've always desired artistically rather than boxing them in, you know, in just the singer or the saxophonist category. It's like, nah, you like pedals? Have at it. You know, that's my brother's vibe. And then he's also into the visual aspect of it. So he's doing, you know, video editing and really cool imagery and stuff behind it. And, you know, my mother is a retired pianist, but also worked in the financial sector in the New Jersey government at one point. So, you know, we all have this festival together. We also own our management company together. So, you know, we manage a few artists and really help them develop over time, you know, teaching them basic budgeting and, you know, the basic aspects of being a freelance musician, you know. So working heavily with that. A lot of touring is about to come up.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, man. Well, it's long as everything stays cool. So, a lot of touring. And honestly, man, like, I'm just looking forward to getting better. You know, it's like I'm on a journey now where my practice and my development has gone through so many stages, you know, because I'm teaching quite a bit now. Like, I have my own private practice, and I call it practice because I look at it as more of a coaching agency than drum lessons, because I talk a lot, as you can see. So it's like, you know, we cover a lot, you know, because one thing that Branford and a lot of my elders showed me, some of it directly, some of it indirectly, a huge part of what we do is really based in philosophy. You know, it's like, going into this, what lens are you looking at this thing through? You know, man, it's like, I listen to you doing, you know, some of the product stuff that you do, and also just playing some tunes, and it's like, the lens that you are looking through is clearly one of service to the song and to the music. You know, not everybody has that, you know, so I want to help musicians, not just drummers, musicians, figure out, like, what is my role here? Like, yeah, that can be an ever-changing thing depending on what band you're playing in, or even, you know, what that band needs for those songs. But I don't want anybody to just think that there's this static existence as a drummer. It's like, yeah, we keep time. That's obvious. But how? And also, why? Like, what is the function of you keeping time in this particular moment? Because there are times where the bass player needs to do that, specifically in a jazz context. The bass player needs to do that. The pianist and the drummer need to blast off to kind of push the soloist. If the bass player goes with us, the tension's gone, and so is the foundation, right? So then there are certain times where the bass player is, you know, busier, and I have to kind of lay it down. You know, it all depends. So I want to help people develop that understanding, which, you know, not everybody has a quartet, quintet, or even band situations to really stretch that knowledge or even gain it. So I want to provide those opportunities. And, you know, we're starting the semester back. I teach at Temple University.
Yeah,
so
man. You're going to be worn out then.
Man, it seems that I'm busy. So there's a lot of stuff to navigate. But, you know, I'll be calling you for some productivity tips, because you are definitely one of the busiest people in the industry.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Gotta
you
keep
know,
moving.
so
That's the only way I can do it.
I hear you. So yeah, we'll be hitting you up for some productivity tips. You know, matter of fact, I think I may start a podcast for myself
Nice.
just for that. You know.
Well, how can people keep up with what you're doing? Your website, or is there another way to go?
Absolutely. So my website is justinfaulknermusic.com. All of my dates are there. Also, I'm a pretty open and friendly person. You know, like I do have management and an agent for all of my booking stuff. But, you know, drummers and musicians are always encouraged to send me messages. You know, if you have questions and, you know, things that you want to check out, or, you know, just even basic, like, how do I pack for this tour? It's like, if I don't know, I can help. I can get someone that does, you know, but, you know, we're human beings and we're all trying to figure this thing out. So, yeah, I'm on Instagram, Justin Faulkner Official. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, all social media platforms. I haven't slid onto TikTok yet. I don't know if that's a thing for me.
Unless you like to do dance routines.
Yeah, you know, yeah. Like, I'm not seeing the dance thing happening, but yeah. So yeah, I'm on all social media platforms. The easiest platform to get a hold of me is definitely Instagram. Like, I have, you know, my Linktree stuff on there, so all of the ways to contact me are available there. And
right on.
Yeah.
Anyone hit up Justin for a lesson before he hits the road, and he won't have time to do it now.
That's a thing. That's a thing for sure. You know, and I try to fit in a few consult calls while I'm out, but yeah, it's hard.
Right on, man. Well, thank you for taking the time, and I look forward to seeing you out on the road in person sometime.
Man, tell me about it, dude. I'll be out your way in a few months, so I will definitely let you know.
Right on, man. Thank you.
Indeed, man. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that episode and my conversation with Justin. I think we could have gone for a couple more hours the way we were headed. But that's it for now. Please, if you do enjoy the show, give us a review over on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. That helps spread the word. And don't forget to send me your questions or topic suggestions to mike@drumfactorydirect.com. I have a folder of everything that's come in so far. Probably do a nice long segment on that in a future episode. So please send me all of your ideas, mike@drumfactorydirect.com. And until then, we'll see you next week. Have a good one.